Double touch, she says that way. Caitlin Clark doesn't argue. The other team, they're not into it. They're like, we're going to probably challenge that. So the whistle blows and she says, we got the ball. What's and they're going to discuss it. And the ref comes in and she says, you 100%. He says, 100%. Hey, you keep missing those. I didn't touch it last time. And he said, yeah, but come on now. I didn't touch it at all. And then he says something to her that makes her not happy. And I tried to zoom in. I tried to give it a look. I have no idea. The only thing I guess, and this is context clues and literally just guessing, you're not having a great game. Don't take it out on me. And it seems something like that to me. I would guess it seems like he said something along those lines. You're not having a great game. Don't take it out on me. Like, oh, I'm not having a great game. You're not either. Because her face is just like, what? That's not. And then she is going to say, that has nothing to do with it.
Sentence, dropped at the right time, can shake an entire institution to its core. That's exactly what just happened inside the WNBA. Everyone thought Caitlin Clark's comment was just another frustrated soundbite about officiating. That's the expectation. A player vents, media debates for 48 hours, league issues a statement, and then the story dies. But the reality? This wasn't a slip of the tongue. This wasn't even about officiating in the way most people think. What Clark did was launch a carefully timed power play, one that turned a rookie phenom into the loudest voice in women's basketball overnight. And once you see how precise and deliberate this move was, you'll never look at that interview the same way again. Think about it. Most fans and even reporters buy into the belief that athletes speak out in the heat of the moment, tired, emotional, caught off guard after a tough loss.
Are you fucking kidding me? From her point of view, it was out of line. It had nothing to do with the calls she was arguing. He's checking out the replay. This is what they're looking at. And I thought they were looking at this, and everyone thought they were looking at that. Looks like she didn't touch it, but no, rewind, go back to the beginning. And it does look like number 6's hand is underneath and pops it up. And number 24 on Connecticut never touched it. That right there pops it up, and then she goes to touch it here, and she doesn't touch it here, so that's what they're looking at. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is just upset. There was audio of this, so you could kind of hear it, and she says, that's just rude. Grow up. Come here. Come here. Come here. Unbelievable. How dare you say that to me? And then you could hear it faintly, and she says, I will be calling too. Yeah. I'll be calling too, just to let you know, because that was embarrassing. That's disappointing. Puts it right on him. That's disappointing. And what's he going to say? Is he going to make a face? Of course. Okay. Well, you complained. You complained all game. And then that kind of ends it there. That was that. I couldn't figure out most of it, mostly because it's not shot.
The common belief is that these outbursts are accidents, flashes of frustration, impulsive shots that fade away. But here's the contrarian take. Clark's 6 words weren't impulsive at all. They were strategic. Proof? The timing, the platform, the context. She was injured, sidelined, watching the game from the best vantage point anyone could have. Not from the floor, but from the sidelines with time to study, rewind, analyze, and learn. And when she finally chose to speak, she didn't pick a random post-game scrum. She went on Sue Bird's podcast. That's not chance. That's precision. That's a message aimed straight at the league's heart. And today we're going to pull apart every layer of it. Why she said it when she did, why the league froze in silence, and why this comment could reshape how power works in professional sports. Let's start with the second best point, because it sets the stage for the best one. Context first. Clark was hurt. The stop-and-go recovery, the unpredictable mornings when she didn't know how her body would respond, the mental grind of not having a fixed timeline. Most athletes would go quiet in those stretches, just focus on rehab and let the storm play out without them. But Clark didn't. Instead, she watched. Not passively, but actively, like an assistant coach with a notepad. She broke down calls, studied game tape, saw which players got the whistles and which ones didn't. From that perspective, the inconsistencies became patterns, and those patterns became data. Application. When she finally returned to the spotlight, she wasn't just another player with a sore ankle complaining after a tough loss. She was a player with receipts. And when you pair data with timing, you don't sound like you're whining. You sound like you're testifying. Framing. That's why her comment felt different. Fans didn't hear frustration. They heard authority. Her words weren't just floating in the air. They landed like evidence in a courtroom. And because Clark isn't just a player, but the WNBA's most marketable product, those words immediately carried the weight of millions in ticket sales, sponsorships, and ratings. That's not just an opinion. That's leverage. Now let's move to the best point, the real dagger. Context. The WNBA was already in the middle of a credibility crisis. Officiating wasn't just a fan gripe. It was an institutional headache. Players were risking fines to call it out. Coaches were being penalized for saying what everyone could see. And then the commissioner made her infamous comment. No winning team complains about officiating. That was the gasoline. Players saw it as insulting. Fans saw it as tone-deaf. And the league suddenly stood on one side of the line while the rest of its community, players, coaches, fans, stood on the other. Application. That's when Clark struck. She didn't just critique officiating. She stepped into a moment where the league had already alienated its own players. Her words became the rallying cry, the banner that frustrated fans and teammates alike could march behind. Framing. That's why her line exploded. 6 words, I wouldn't miss a call, turned into a national hashtag. Fans deputized her as the league's unofficial quality control officer. Suddenly, every bad call from every game got tagged to her quote. Clark wasn't just speaking for herself. She became the mouthpiece for an entire league's frustration. And the WNBA's silence only amplified it. No statements, no spin, no counter. Just a vacuum. And in that vacuum, her voice became the defining one. Now here's where the re-hook comes in. Because this wasn't just about officiating. It was about power. What happens when the one player you can't afford to ignore becomes the one leading the criticism? The league had 2 terrible options: defend the refs and risk alienating its golden star, or validate Clark and undermine officiating authority across the board. They chose a third path, silence. But silence isn't neutral. Silence is surrender. Every day the WNBA said nothing, Clark's narrative grew louder and her power grew stronger. And this is where the story takes its most cinematic turn, her return. Imagine the arena that night. Every fan, every camera, every referee knows what she said. Every whistle or no whistle now carries the weight of a public test. First drive to the basket, contact, no call, the crowd erupts. Not just in frustration, but in anticipation, like they're waiting to see if Clark will smirk again, waiting for the meme to write itself. And when she does, the place goes off. That's when you realize the balance of power has shifted. Before, refs control the game. Now, Clark controls the narrative around the refs. From there, the ripple effect only grew. Sponsors started whispering about player protection policies with Clark's name specifically mentioned. Broadcasters hinted at the financial risks of her being sidelined. Fans spun theories that rival teams were using extra physicality to wear her down. Whether true or not, the perception became its own reality, fueling debates about whether the league was protecting its biggest star. And here's the kicker. Clark may have just rewritten the playbook for every athlete who comes after her. For decades, athletes were told, keep it in-house, don't air dirty laundry, let the league handle it. But Clark showed that in the age of social media, the player who speaks out first owns the conversation. One comment becomes a trending topic becomes a debate, and a debate becomes pressure on the institution to change. So where does this end? That's the open loop we're all waiting on. Does the WNBA quietly adjust officiating mid-season, effectively admitting Clark was right? Do other players follow her lead, calling out travel conditions, salaries, marketing priorities? Does Clark become the catalyst for an era where public confrontation is no longer the exception but the expectation? What we do know is this. Clark's 6 words are still echoing. They've sparked conversations in locker rooms, boardrooms, and living rooms. They've forced the league into silence. And they've given players a glimpse of what happens when one of their own takes control of the narrative. This is no longer about one foul call or one interview. This is about whether the most marketable star in women's basketball just cracked open the door to a new kind of power. And here's the high note. Maybe that's the real legacy. Not just the points she scores or the game she wins, but the idea she's planting, that players can shape the game off the court as much as they do on it.